I'm Anya Kobayashi, and my original inquiry question for this stage of the process was, are the extreme measures colleges go to market themselves beneficial or harmful to the market? So after going over my research again, I pulled some themes or concepts that I thought unified them well, or unified my new question well, and my new question is, which I think fits my research better, will the shift in the college market eventually drive prices down? So I felt this question was a natural conclusion to my research because a number of my sources were observing the shift in the market and what colleges are doing to make themselves more marketable. And I feel like the natural conclusion and a more helpful discussion than just observing those things was what happened next. So how will that actually affect colleges and the way we view them, as well as college prices? And I felt like this was a question that is definitely more specific than the one I had before, but also has a fair amount of room for debate. You could compare it to the housing market because, like, in thinking of it, I've used the term buyer's market a lot, which is often used in the housing market, but there are a lot of different variables in the college market that affect the market differently than the housing market. For example, the difference in demographic of people looking for, particularly an undergraduate degree. Competition looks different because for a college you're looking at colleges from much different regions, whereas if you're looking for a house you're looking in one region, and undergraduate degrees are a one-time purchase kind of thing. There isn't a dynamic where you're buying and selling a lot. It's one thing that you choose for that. So my concepts that I pulled out related to this question were, one, colleges being less secure in getting students in, and then very directly tied to that, colleges, or college in general, being a buyer's market, slash more of a business transaction than ever, just the way we view college being different. So for the first concept, I felt that the Forbes article Invisible Force Behind College Admissions spoke a lot to colleges being less sure about students wanting to go there, being less secure in knowing that they will fill the requisite numbers. So a quote from that article, and the context of this is that they had 1,500 top admissions and financial aid advisors from over 600 schools gathered to discuss the change in the market. And someone leading the meeting asked them, how many of you would say that the primary motivation for offering students merit scholarships is to reward academic achievements? And no one raised their hand. So just discussing the fact that even these merit scholarships, which are not purportedly used or not directly said to be used for getting students in, are being used as motivation to get college or students to go to their school, as opposed to purely just for academic achievement. Another article, the U.S. News, How Do Schools Market Themselves to Attract Students, talked about many different schools, but one that I remember most visibly, Long Island University in New York, hands out iPad minis to all incoming full-time students. And discussing that, they talk about how they want to be able to relate to students and use communication methods that students use more, but they also say, quote unquote, students appreciate the initiative and it helps distinguish us in the competitive space. So, like, they can say what they want as to why they're doing this, but when it comes down to is the fact that colleges are willing to shell out money on fancy gadgets for each individual student to get them in, which I think is interesting. And then a scholarly article from the Journal of Higher Education kind of related to both points. They said projections of a declining college-going applicant pool have admissions advisors wanting to assess more what actually makes their recruitment methods useful and helpful to them. So again, colleges being less sure, and then assessing this in terms of how a business might assess how to increase their customers, looking at it from a very pragmatic viewpoint of cost and demand. So for the second point, the New York Times article, in a buyer's market, colleges become more fluent in the language of business, again, I think this is a college president saying there is some movement away from public good to the private value. So I feel like educators are hesitant to admit this and still want to view it in terms of service for the public good, but more and more it is acting like a business transaction between a college and the student. Home guides, and this isn't directly related to colleges, but home guides discusses buyer's market and what that results in, and they say, quote unquote, the biggest result of a buyer's market is in lowering of house prices. So I felt that related to my question in that that is a natural consequence of having a buyer's market. And then the other sources kind of talk more about colleges and how those two relate, bringing those two worlds together. So those are my sources so far, and my new question.